For centuries, society has told men how to think, act, and feel about love and sex, but Jung revealed that what men show is often the opposite of what they suppress. Behind the confidence, the stoicism, or even the charm, there's a silent struggle between primal instincts and emotional hunger. Most men won't admit this, even to themselves, because admitting it feels like surrender. But here's the reality: men don't just crave sex. They crave transcendence. They fear vulnerability more than rejection. And their idea of love is tangled in unconscious archetypes older than civilization itself. By the end of this video, you'll understand what men truly want and why they'll never say it out loud. Men's true thoughts about love and sex aren't just private. They're often buried in places even they can't fully access. Carl Jung, the pioneer of depth psychology, proved that our conscious minds are just the surface. Beneath lies a hidden world of instincts, archetypes, and repressed desires, shaped by biology, society, and thousands of years of collective human experience. But why does this matter? Because when a man says he wants one thing, his unconscious might be screaming for the opposite. And the reason is simple: society rewards men for dominance, control, and emotional detachment, while punishing vulnerability. So they split themselves in two: the part they show the world, and the shadow they refuse to face. Jung called this the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine energies that shape how we love and desire. For men, the anima represents their unconscious ideal of womanhood, a blueprint formed by culture, childhood, and even mythology. But here's the twist: most men never confront this inner world. Instead, they project it onto real women, craving partners who embody their anima while fearing the power it holds over them. And then there's the shadow, the darkest, most denied parts of the psyche. This is where men hide their shame about dependency, their secret longing for nurturance, and their terror of being exposed as weak. The result? A man who's desperate for deep connection but trained to destroy it the moment it gets too real. This isn't about blame. It's about decoding the silent language of the male psyche. Because when you understand what's buried, you can finally see what's really driving his choices, in love, in sex, and in every relationship that follows. Number 1. Men separate love and sex more than women do, but not for the reasons you think. The male psyche operates in a constant state of tension between two powerful forces: the biological imperative of sex and the soul's longing for emotional union. Carl Jung revealed this isn't mere social conditioning, but rather a fundamental split in masculine psychology rooted in our deepest archetypes. At the core of this duality lies the animus, the structured, rational masculine principle that seeks control and achievement, locked in eternal struggle with the anima, man's inner feminine essence that yearns for connection, beauty, and transcendence. This internal battle explains why men can appear so contradictory in matters of love and sexuality, capable of deep devotion yet compartmentalizing physical desire with what seems like emotional detachment. The common assumption that men simply separate love and sex more easily than women misses the profound psychological undercurrents at play. This division isn't about shallowness, but rather a protective mechanism against the overwhelming power of the anima. When a man experiences sexual attraction, he's confronting not just physical desire but the terrifying vulnerability of his own unconscious feminine aspect. The more potent the attraction, the greater the threat to his carefully constructed masculine identity. This explains the paradox of why men often pull away after intimacy. It's not that they feel nothing, but rather that they feel too much, and the emotional exposure becomes unbearable to the ego. Biological drives certainly play their role, hardwiring men for physical pursuit, but Jung's genius was in revealing how these instincts become entangled with archetypal patterns. The Madonna whore complex exemplifies this perfectly. not as a misogynistic tendency as commonly interpreted, but as a psychological defense mechanism. By splitting women into categories of purity and debasement, men create psychological distance from the full power of the feminine that threatens to dissolve their masculine boundaries. The Madonna represents the safe, socially approved anima projection that demands respect but forbids full sexual expression, while the whore embodies the shadow side where desire can flow freely but must remain disconnected from love. This division serves a painful purpose. It allows men to engage sexually while protecting themselves from the soul-level merging that true intimacy requires. What appears as cold detachment is often unconscious self-preservation against emotions that feel dangerously overwhelming. The tragedy is that in this self-protection, men cut themselves off from the very transformation they secretly crave. For it's only by integrating these split aspects, embracing both the animus's strength and the anima's depth, that a man can experience love as the sacred union of body and soul rather than an endless oscillation between hunger and guilt. The path to wholeness requires facing what the duality conceals, that every sexual encounter is, at its core, a spiritual encounter with the mysteries of the self. Number 2. Men fear vulnerability more than rejection. Beneath the surface of every man's carefully constructed persona lies a shadow realm of unacknowledged fears and forbidden emotions. This isn't just about hiding weaknesses, it's about survival in a world that measures masculinity by emotional restraint. The shadow self becomes the vault where men lock away anything that contradicts the image of strength they're expected to maintain. What's most surprising isn't what gets hidden, but why. The terror of vulnerability runs deeper than the fear of rejection because rejection merely wounds the ego, while vulnerability threatens to dismantle the entire masculine construct. A man might face professional failure or physical danger with relative courage, yet tremble at the prospect of saying, "I need you," to someone he loves. The shadow doesn't just conceal shame about perceived inadequacies. It guards the most tender, human parts of a man's psyche, his capacity for gentle affection, his longing to be comforted, his secret romantic idealism. These aren't absent, but actively suppressed, creating a painful paradox where the more a man feels, the less he can express. Society's demand for stoicism transforms normal emotional needs into sources of deep shame, teaching boys early that tears are betrayal and neediness is failure. By adulthood, this conditioning runs so deep that accessing authentic vulnerability feels like risking annihilation. The tragedy is that the qualities men hide are precisely what could make them most loved, not in spite of their vulnerability, but because of it. Consider the man who secretly yearns for love but can't admit it, even to himself. His shadow whispers that desire equals dependency, and dependency equals weakness. So he constructs elaborate defenses, distancing when he most wants closeness, criticizing when he feels affection, sabotaging relationships when they become important. This isn't gamesmanship, but self-preservation. The Jungian shadow doesn't just store what's unacceptable to society, it guards what's too dangerous for the man himself to face. When these buried needs occasionally surface, they often manifest in distorted forms, unexplained anger replacing sadness, sexual intensity substituting for emotional hunger, or workaholism masking a fear of intimacy. The path to integration isn't about abandoning strength, but redefining it. A man fully reconciled with his shadow discovers that what he feared would destroy him actually makes him more complete. His capacity to love deepens when he stops fearing his own tenderness. His relationships transform when he no longer punishes others for seeing through his armor. And his sexuality gains new dimensions when it's no longer used as both weapon and shield against the vulnerability he secretly craves. The shadow's greatest trick was convincing him that to be loved, he must hide the very parts that make love possible. Number 3. Men crave deep connection but often don't know how to ask for it. The lover archetype represents one of the most powerful yet misunderstood forces in the male psyche, an energy that transcends mere physical desire and taps into a primal longing for union. This isn't just about sex, but about the soul's craving to dissolve boundaries and experience ecstatic connection. Yet modern men often find themselves at war with this archetype, their natural inclination toward passion and vulnerability constantly battling against the culturally exalted warrior energy that values control, discipline, and emotional detachment. The tragedy is that while society rewards men for warrior qualities, the ability to compartmentalize, to dominate, to achieve, it provides no sacred container for the lover's surrender to feeling, to pleasure, to the terrifying beauty of emotional exposure. This internal conflict explains why men so frequently idealize women who perfectly embody their anima, the unconscious feminine ideal that carries all the soul qualities they've had to suppress in themselves. When a man becomes obsessed with a woman who radiates warmth, emotional fluency, or sensual freedom, he's not just attracted to her, he's enchanted by the lost parts of himself that she represents. This projection explains the almost mystical intensity some men feel toward certain women, where attraction feels like destiny. The woman becomes the living symbol of everything his inner lover yearns for but his warrior fears, the permission to feel deeply, to need passionately, to exist beyond the cold logic of achievement and control. Yet this idealization contains a painful paradox. The more perfectly a woman embodies a man's anima, the more she threatens the carefully constructed identity he's built around masculine ideals. This is why men often sabotage relationships where they feel most deeply seen. The terror of losing themselves in the lover's energy can outweigh even the profound fulfillment it offers. The anima projection also explains why men frequently feel disappointed when real women fail to match their unconscious ideal, not because the women are lacking, but because no human could possibly carry the weight of a man's disowned soul qualities indefinitely. The path to healing this split doesn't require abandoning the warrior's strength, but integrating it with the lover's vulnerability. When a man learns to access his own emotional depth without shame, he stops demanding that women compensate for his inner emptiness. When he makes peace with his need for connection, he no longer oscillates between needy clinging and cold detachment. And when he honors the lover within, he discovers that true masculine power isn't about controlling feelings, but having the courage to be transformed by them. The most potent men throughout history weren't those who denied the lover, but those who harnessed its energy, allowing passion to fuel purpose, letting intimacy deepen integrity, and finding in love not weakness, but the ultimate strength. Number 4. Sex isn't just physical, it's a spiritual need for men. Beneath the surface of raw physical desire lies a profound spiritual hunger that most men struggle to articulate. Sex, in its deepest manifestation, represents far more than biological release. It becomes a sacred portal where the conscious mind surrenders to something far greater than itself. Jung understood this hidden dimension when he described sexual energy as the most powerful bridge between our ordinary awareness and the vast unconscious realms within us. In those moments of complete abandon, a man isn't just experiencing pleasure, he's briefly liberated from the prison of his carefully constructed persona, allowed to exist in pure sensation beyond the constraints of thought and social conditioning. This explains why sex holds such primal importance in the male psyche. It's one of the few remaining rituals where modern man can touch the divine. The cultural narrative reduces male sexuality to simple mechanics, ignoring the profound vulnerability that true sexual union demands. What remains taboo is men's secret yearning for emotional and spiritual fusion during sex, the desire to be fully known and accepted in their most exposed state. This hunger often manifests in paradoxical ways. The man who seeks multiple partners might actually be searching for an elusive sense of soul connection he can't name, The one who fixates on particular fantasies could be trying to recreate an archetypal experience of worship and surrender. The shame comes when these deeper longings surface, when a man finds himself moved to tears during intimacy or craving more emotional contact than society says he should need. So he learns to camouflage his spiritual hunger as purely physical appetite, protecting himself from judgment, even self-judgment. This split between physical act and spiritual need creates a painful dissonance in many men's lives. They may achieve sexual satisfaction while remaining starved for the transcendent union their souls secretly crave. Jung's insight reveals why casual sex often leaves men feeling emptier than before, not because the physical pleasure was lacking, but because the encounter failed to satisfy the unconscious longing for sacred intimacy. The most powerful sexual experiences in a man's life are rarely the most graphic or technically perfect, but those where he felt completely seen and accepted in his totality, where pleasure became a vehicle for profound self-revelation and connection. When men deny this spiritual dimension of their sexuality, they inadvertently cut themselves off from one of life's most potent avenues for growth and transformation. Sexual energy becomes merely a release valve rather than the sacred creative force it's meant to be. The integration occurs when a man can honor both the physical and spiritual dimensions of his desire, when he no longer has to pretend that sex is just sex, but can recognize it as what it truly is, a holy encounter with the mysteries of his own soul, reflected through the body of another. In this light, the health of a man's sexual life becomes inseparable from the health of his entire being, not a compartmentalized urge to manage, but a sacred energy to honor, direct, and ultimately transcend. The dance between masculine and feminine energies requires both grace and wisdom, a careful balance of presence and patience that creates space for a man's hidden depths to emerge. The first step is understanding that his defenses aren't walls built against you, but fortresses protecting his most fragile parts. To encourage shadow work, cultivate an atmosphere of unconditional acceptance, not by demanding vulnerability, but by demonstrating through your own emotional honesty that it's safe to lower the drawbridge. When he shares something small, a fleeting insecurity, a rare moment of tenderness, meet it with quiet appreciation rather than dramatic praise, which can trigger his fear of being pitted. The key is consistency, proving over time that his vulnerability won't be used against him, that his shadows are welcome in your light. Anima projection works both ways. While he unconsciously seeks his feminine ideal in you, you hold the power to reflect back the integrated wholeness he secretly craves. This doesn't mean performing perfection, but embodying the sacred paradox of feminine energy, warmth that doesn't smother, mystery that doesn't manipulate. Be the sanctuary where he can rest from constant striving, but also the muse who reminds him of life's poetry. Withhold the maternal impulse to fix or coddle when he struggles. Instead, trust his inner strength enough to simply witness. Your quiet confidence in his wholeness, even when he feels fractured, becomes the mirror in which he glimpses his own potential. Communication in these realms happens most powerfully in the spaces between words. A lingering touch when he shares something difficult speaks louder than reassurance. Comfortable silence after intimacy conveys more acceptance than sentimental declarations. Pay attention to what he expresses through actions. The way he cares for you when you're sick reveals his tenderness. His protectiveness when you feel unsafe shows his devotion. When tensions arise, bypass accusatory language by anchoring conversations in shared values rather than complaints. Instead of, "You never open up," try, "I love when we feel connected. How can we create more of that?" This frames vulnerability as a path to greater intimacy rather than a demand to change. Timing matters profoundly. The best opportunities for depth often come in transitional moments, when he's relaxed after making love, when he's absorbed in creative flow, when he's between the structured roles of his daily life. These are the cracks in his armor where light gets in. Bring up emotional topics side by side rather than face to face, during a walk, while cooking together, to ease the intensity of direct confrontation. And remember that his process will look different than yours. Where you might need to talk through feelings, he may integrate them through physicality, holding you, working with his hands, or simply needing time alone before reconnecting. Ultimately, the greatest gift you can offer isn't your ability to draw him out, but your capacity to hold space without agenda. When he senses that your love doesn't hinge on him performing emotional availability on demand, that you see and accept the totality of who he is, including his silent spaces, that's when the deepest thawing occurs. Your steady presence becomes the alchemical container where his fragmented parts can finally begin to integrate, where the lover learns to speak the warrior's language, and where sex becomes not just an act of pleasure, but a homecoming to his whole self. The journey through the hidden landscape of male desire reveals a profound truth. What often appears as simplicity on the surface is actually intricate depth waiting to be understood. Carl Jung's wisdom gives us more than just explanations. It offers a compass for navigating the uncharted territories of love, sex, and masculine vulnerability. These unconscious forces don't have to remain mysteries that sabotage relationships. Once brought into awareness, they become powerful allies in creating deeper, more authentic connections. The patterns we've uncovered today aren't flaws in male psychology, but doorways to transformation when approached with insight and compassion. Now we'd love to hear from you. Which revelation about the male psyche resonated most deeply? Was it the spiritual dimension of male sexuality? The hidden vulnerability behind emotional withdrawal? Share your thoughts below. Your perspective adds valuable dimensions to this conversation. If this exploration of Jungian psychology illuminated new understanding for you, show your appreciation by liking this video. It helps us create more content that goes beyond surface-level relationship advice to uncover these psychological truths. And make sure to subscribe because next week we're turning our Jungian lens to the other side of the equation, how the animus, the inner masculine principle in women, silently shapes their approach to love, career, and personal power in ways that might surprise you. Until then, remember, the greatest relationships aren't about changing each other, but about having the courage to explore the undiscovered countries within ourselves.